Hello, stalwart students of ancient magic. One final info dump in which we are going to talk about Circe a little bit and then Medea a lot. I am so glad that a lot of you are already fans of Circe. You've Much of this is in Ogden, so I'm not going to repeat a bunch of stuff you know. Circe is this divine goddess figure who lives on her island of Aiaia, which is all vowels, and it sounds like the Greek word for ah. So it's literally the island. Ah, I love that. Uh, where most famously the hero Odysseus lands. Uh, this is a story with a lot to unpack in it. Circe, when faced with Odysseus's men, performs a magic ritual that has in it a lot of the elements of what people whose cultures stem in part from the Mediterranean as a root think of when they think of magic space. So let's kind of enumerate some of these. So Circe has powers that come from a divine source. In this case, the divine source is Circe. She is, I think, the daughter of the sun. And in Homer, she's called a goddess, and she's not one of the 12 Olympians, but she is still very firmly divine, not a demigoddess, goddess. She has some chthonic connections, so she knows where the underworld is, and one of the things she does is tells Odysseus how to go and talk to the dead. So she's definitely got some ins and connections, but as a child of the sun, she's not an earth-dwelling goddess, so she herself is not chthonic. She is a child of both the sky and of the underworld, and that's a very interesting space to be inhabiting. She is found weaving, which is a very gendered activity, but it's a gendered activity that's associated with cleverness, education, knowledge. In fact, weaving for women was considered a kind of poetry. And if you've ever done weaving in fiber arts, you can kind of see why. You have to have a plan, it's very precise, and you have to be able to make a lot of real-time decisions in order to get the result you want. It requires a lot of patience, a lot of time, and a lot of expertise. I've got a little bit of a vested interest in this. This is my hobby, which is why I have the how to spin demo I'm going to put up. It's a fun talent. Oh, actually, let me pause this. I'm going to need a prop for this next bit of lecture. Alrighty, prop acquired. This is one kind of distaff used in ancient spinning. It's a ring distaff, so it's got a little hole on the end that you put your pinky finger through, and you use this to hold unspun fiber. And then with your other hand in a spindle, you turn that fiber into thread. So this you may recognize as the activity done by the Fates. So the Fates are three goddesses associated with the underworld, so they're chthonic goddesses, and they spin the thread of a person's life. The next one measures how long that life is, and the final one, Atropos, cuts the thread, thus ending the length of the life. And then these threads are woven together in the tapestry of time. So this weaving activity is associated with creation, birth, death, and control over existence. And you will notice that Circe is often depicted holding something like this. This is also part of the text. So she's holding a rhabdos, which is a generic word for a stick. So it could be a shuttle or a shed stick, but probably it's a distaff that she's holding in her hand, because a distaff is very sturdy. And it's also a convenient item that you're going to have in your hand a lot as an ancient woman, and was likely used regularly to thwack misbehaving children, because ancient people were a little abusive about how they raised their kids straight up. But it's a little bit like, rulers to the hand. So it is an instrument of authority and control, both over your thread and over your kids. So it's got some connections to visceral imagery in an ancient person's mind. And when Circe takes this instrument after she's given the the guests food as part of the hospitality ritual, and she boops them and turns them into pigs. That is one of the first instances of what later becomes a magic wand, is the Rhabdos of Circe. So if you like wands making wizards, then swish and flick to turn your enemies into pigs. But alas, it doesn't work on Odysseus because he has the antidote. And this brings us to the next little element of the Circe story. That is, Circe cooks the food that she then serves, but she does something to the food that makes it do something unexpected. It turns people into pigs. Much like the same people who are tasked with food growing and preparation and curation can, through manipulating that food, have power over the people eating it. Now, I have never successfully turned anyone into a pig because I don't cook. I'm a very bad cook. Mr. Spouse is the cook. He's so good.
I have not turned anybody into some sort of pig.
I don't know. You kind of turned me into a pig with that shepherd's pie you made last week. That was delicious.
I would never, ever say feeding you shepherd's pie makes you a pig.
And that is why Mr. Spouse is amazing. Seriously, though, he's an amazing cook. Marry a cook. That's just free life advice. All right, so back to Circe. So Circe is attacking from an angle that is unexpected and using a position of trust, one that was frequently given to women to circumvent her vulnerability in this world. And she is vulnerable. She's a woman alone. And the people showing up at her door, before they were turned into pigs, and at the last couple of islands they stopped at, let us remember, they land on the island and they raid people's houses, they murder and rape people, and they take their stuff. And in fact, there's a burglary in progress when the Cyclops incident goes down. So these are not the kinds of dudes that deserve to come to dinner at your house and not have something. No, don't poison somebody because I said it was okay. It's not moral to kill people, but I'm just saying I understand why Circe did it. But Odysseus's bro Hermes helps him out on the way over and gives him an antidote, which also has the logic of pharmacy in it. Ancient peoples realized that certain kinds of plants that can have harmful effects can be negated by a plant with an opposite pharmaceutical effect, which is a thing. A lot of toxins in antiquity could be mitigated enough that the body could recover by using another kind of toxic substance. For instance, if somebody puts aconite into your food, it causes your heart rate to speed up, so it kind of like overstimulates your system. If you manage to do some opium, that can kind of slow the process down enough that you can survive and clear it from your system. But actually, don't do that. Don't do any of that. All right, so when Odysseus is able to get out of the pig spell, which is what we've got going on in the second piece of art. So first piece of art, she's, use my red pen here. Here is Circe offering the potion to one of Odysseus's men, and she's got the Rhabdos, the wand, right there, ready to bonk him. But apparently it's already happened. He's turning into a pig, even as he's like saying no to Circe's drugs. I love this image, and you may recognize it from Discord because I love it so much. This is maybe another favorite, although I find it depressing. So Odysseus, when he doesn't turn into a pig, takes out a sword and threatens to kill Circe, at which point she's like, wait, dude, let's have sex instead. And he's like, oh, okay. Ew. Ew. But at any rate, this Circe myth has in it a lot of the baggage that is brought into Greek literary depictions of who witches are and what they do and what they're out for. And she's always lurking around in the background, both visually and in rituals. Here's the images you would have seen in your ancient Greek mind. Let's talk about her, I think this is her niece, Medea. Medea is a descendant of Circe through her mother. Her father is the king of a place that is so far out of the mythological Greek world that it's not on this map. So the very far end of the Black Sea. So the Black Sea If you sail up the Aegean into the Hellespont, which is this body of water between Europe and Asia, into the Black Sea and go all the way to the far end of the Black Sea, you end up in modern-day Georgia, ancient Kolkis, which is Medea's hometown. So this mythology is developed out of an early stage of Greek-speaking exploration, where this is one of the farthest places in the world they can think of. In early Greek literature, the two farthest bits of the world to them are Kolkis, where Medea is from, and then Ethiopia, which is the very far south of the Nile. So this is Kush, this area on the southernmost border of Egypt. Sometimes it's part of Egypt, sometimes it's not part of Egypt. It just depends on what century you're in. At one point, it's in charge of Egypt, which is an interesting dynastic moment. Google Black Pyramids. It's really neat. At any rate, back to Medea of Kolkis then. She's a descendant of the sun god. So she is also quasi-divine, but she's also part mortal. And the hero Jason apparently gets the first ship together and then pulls all of his buddies. It's like a who's who of Greek mythology, like Hercules and Hercules' boyfriend, whose name I'm not remembering right now, and Orpheus is on the team, and Achilles' dad is part of it, and oh, what's his name? The old dude from the Iliad, Nestor. Yeah, Nestor is on this boat. So like, it's a little corny, but there we are. So this boat is sent on a task to retrieve the golden fleece from the far-off land of Kolkis. And why they're going there is that Jason's toxic uncle, who has seized control of the throne of his hometown, tells Jason shows up and he's like, "Hey, I'm the real heir to the throne." And the guy's like, uncle's like, "Yes, you are, and I'll let you be the king, but first I want you to get the golden fleece from Kolkis." He thinks Jason's not going to do it because the golden fleece is guarded by dragons and it's in the far end of the world, so like he expects Jason to die trying to get it. The goddess Hera really loves Jason, and this turns out to be very helpful to him. Now, Medea has everything in her that ancient Greeks thought of as scary and powerful. She is not Greek. She's foreign. She's from as far away as you can get. She's also from that part of foreign land that's adjacent to Scythia, so it's associated with the Amazons. She's also got some divine power in her as well, so she's not completely mortal. So let's see, we're afraid of the gods. And I would be afraid of the Greek gods too. We are afraid of foreigners, especially foreigners that let women go to war. Oh yeah, also, she's an expert in the same things that Aunt Circe is an expert in. That is the use of plants and potion brewing in order to achieve supernatural effects. And this makes her also scary because she's not just powerful in a conventional sense, she's powerful in a way that is difficult to impossible to defend against, with knowledge that is outside the remit of Greek people. So Medea, to an ancient Greek mind, scary, but also cool. One of the, no, I'll keep the spoiler until the end. There's going to be a neat plot twist here. Yes, so here is Kolkis. This map in modern Greek. Just go with it here, but you can see. So here's mainland Greece. Jason starts from here, which is north of Athens along the coast of Euboea. Goes all the way in here. He has a like long, confusing route home. That's what the blue is. Kind of ignore that. The red route is important. And in order to even get here, there's a lot of divine intervention that happens. But when he lands in Kolkis, Hera realizes that Jason isn't going to be able to get the Golden Fleece unless he has inside help. So she forces Medea to fall in love with Jason. So Medea normally would not have hooked up with Jason. He's not the world's most impressive hero, straight up. But Hera makes her fall in love with him. And when Hera makes you fall in love with somebody, because she's the goddess of marriages and political alliances, she makes you want to marry them. So Medea, in her mind, they are married. And in ancient terms, a consent to cohabit is a kind of marriage. But Jason, however, is thinking with Greek logic, wherein a marriage is when you move in with a citizen woman and you have an agreement with another citizen family. Medea is not a citizen. She is going to be an immigrant, which means that in Jason's mind, this is temporary, this is for fun. In Medea's mind, oh no, she's on Team Jason, and she also realizes eventually that she didn't have control over this. So she's in this weird, divinely coerced relationship with Jason, and this is going to inform a lot of what ends up happening next. Jason takes Medea home. They're madly in love. And Medea starts to solve his problems at home the same way she did in Colchis. So in Colchis, she uses her knowledge of pharmacy and magic to make him impervious to the various things he has to go through to win the Golden Fleece. She puts the dragon to sleep. I mean, basically, Medea does the heavy lifting that allows Jason to get the Golden Fleece. He comes home, he gives his uncle the Golden Fleece, and he's like, yes, I got the Golden Fleece. And his uncle's like, oh, yes, that is the Golden Fleece. Gold Star, very good. I guess you'll be the king eventually. And Medea's like, that's not the deal we agreed to. I am going to be a helpful spouse. So what she does is she gets the usurper king's daughters together, and she says to them, hey guys, I have this special method by which I can turn an old person young. And she demonstrates by taking a really old ram, killing the old ram, putting it into a pot that she's put a bunch of different herbs into, and then the ram jumps back out of the pot, and it's a new little lamb that's going, ah, and it's totally cute. And the daughters are like, yes, we should do this to our father. That's what this scene is here. She's got a knife because she kills the old ram, puts him in the pot, cooks him, and then out jumps this new little ah! And then here's one of the daughters going like, groovy, great idea, let's do that. So here Medea is making a PowerPoint presentation to the king himself on like how to do this thing. He goes for it. His daughters murder him, chop him up, put him into the stew pot, but all they get is dad soup. Jason does not get to be king as a result of this power move. Rather, the people of his hometown are horrified that he/his wife have done this. And they're like, dude, you are so not my king. Hashtag not my king. They kick him out of his hometown, and he has to go to Corinth for sanctuary. Which brings us to our next scene. So by this time, Jason and Medea have 2 sons, cute little kids. They're a family. They've gone together. But, oh, well, that's a bit of a spoiler, isn't it? So Jason does what he says to Medea is, this is good for our whole family. What I'm going to do, I've been allowed to become a citizen of Corinth. I'm going to marry the Corinthian king's daughter. We are going to be a Corinthian family, and then our kids are going to grow up to be citizens. And Medea's like, I'm your wife. We are married. You can't do this thing. And Jason's like, oh yeah, I can do this thing. And she's like, well, but what about our kids? And he's like, oh, I'll keep them. You can visit. But no, wait, you can't visit. Actually, we're banishing you from Corinth. I'm keeping the kids, which legally Jason is allowed to do. All the Corinthians are like, yes, she's foreign. She doesn't count. Marriages to a foreigner, of course that doesn't count. And then your kids by the foreigner, they're not real kids. I mean, I guess you're fond of them, but no, your real children are going to be the children you have with the Greek lady. So Medea is in this impossible situation where she's given up everything for Jason. She turned against her father. She killed her brother at one point. She has burned every single bridge. She has no place to go back to. And he completely flips on her. Like, there's no damn gratitude. She came up, she murdered a king and put him in a stew pot for him. Like, that's devotion. I would actually, I'm not going to
No.
confess to murder on the,
No.
okay, good.
Please don't.
Okay, no, I like your dad. Your dad's awesome. At any rate, so I don't think West Virginia is sufficiently foreign. And I can't do magic. And also I'm Catholic. At any rate, I've been in quarantine too long. At any rate, what are we talking about? Yes. So Medea retaliates in a creative but disturbing way. Now, early versions of this myth, she doesn't murder the children. She does murder the new bride, but she doesn't murder the children. It's in a play written by an Athenian playwright in the context of Pericles' relationship with Aspasia that this scene happens. But my gosh, it's memorable, and there is art of it everywhere. There's a lot of fan art of Medea doing this thing, where she kills the children and takes their bodies with her so that their father can't have them even in death. He can't mourn them, he can't have them. They're hers, she made them, and she's laying a claim to them on the grounds that he left her no choice. The only way she can have her children is in death, which is dark, but understandable. I will not kill my kids. I'm just kind of putting that out there, but I understand how this worked. A polarizing moment, perhaps, but one that made a deep impression on ancient art. And here we are looking at one of my favorite pieces ever, as I'm sure those of you who have been on Discord have noticed. Medea, remember, is part divine, and after she kills her kids with Jason, she pieces out from Corinth on a dragon chariot. So it's a chariot drawn by twin dragon snakes, a chariot that's owned by the sun god Helios, and it goes pulling off into the sky where she flies off to go be with her new boyfriend, the king of Athens. And this is the spoiler, folks. Medea has an afterlife. Jason dies sad and alone when his rotting ship falls and bonks him in the head, and then he's dead. Goodbye, Jason. Don't mess with Medea, Jason. Sorry, that's very violent, but gosh darn it, I understand why. Right, back to Medea, though. Medea, I'm sure she's deeply traumatized by all of the stuff she's been through, but she's quasi-divine. She's a survivor. She goes to Athens and becomes the mother of some of the primordial heroes of Athens in mythology. And this was something Athens had a hard time dealing with, because on the one hand, Athenians believed that they had been born from the earth of Athens itself, that they were really true indigenous natives, and that's why their citizen laws were so restrictive. But that line has Medea in it. Medea, who is the most foreign person ancient Greek mythology could come up with. And that's an interesting contradiction that sits at the middle of Athenian religion, and that's also part of this story and what Medea is to ancient people who are thinking about her. She is othered, but she's also not othered. She's part of Greek mythology and Greek history. She's the child of a Greek god. She's part of a foundational Greek epic through Xerxe. So, as much as Greeks think of magic as feminine and foreign and othered and subaltern, that subalternity, right, that otherness, dissolves on closer inspection. And this is a dynamic that we still see in cultures when they project onto magical space foreignness. And Ogden I'm including in this. Some of you have noticed that Ogden chooses to call human figurines used for ritual purposes voodoo dolls, which is an interesting choice because voodoo, although it is a religious tradition that uses small human figurines, is not the most necessary one to reach for a translation of the Greek custom. There is a European custom of using small human figurines. They are called poppets in English, a perfectly good English word that we could have used to describe these small ritual human figurines. The fact that Ogden, I think without a lot of thought, to be generous to Ogden, and I have a lot of respect for him, I think he went there out of a bit of a habit. We are used to thinking of magic through a lens of foreignness and otherness, and mapping increasingly magical space as we get farther and farther away from space we consider us versus them. But magical space isn't as far removed from usness as I think we think. Ritual is a part of everyday life. I'm hard pressed to think of a human society that doesn't have an element of ritual in it somewhere. It's something that humans do. Emotionality and irrational logic is something that seems to be baked into human cognition, and going as close as I'm going to get to cognitive models of magic. But it may very well be that rejecting magicness and magic space is in some way rejecting a part of usness. And I support that choice. If you want to make that choice, like, I see why one would do that. I come from a religious tradition that tries to eschew a lot of magical stuff. But it's a choice that we can talk about and think about and process in a neutral way as part of how we choose to exist in the world. And I find that a neat space to sit with, and an interesting aspect of being human, that as far as we try to resist being a part of supernatural, somehow it's irreducible and messier to lop off than you might think. So on that happy note, this ends the info dump for section 2. Section 2 is the most info dumpy. I'm not going to do this many lectures again because gosh darn it. What I would like you to do for Monday, and I'll tell you this on Discord too, think about your dreams. If you're comfortable doing so, write down the details of some of your dreams. We're going to do an exercise where we're going to use an ancient dream interpretation manual as a lens for looking at ancient dreams and modern dreams and thinking about how we make sense of the irrational or unconscious products of our human brains. We'll also be talking about other kinds of divination too, so there's going to be a lecture about that popping sometime tomorrow. The quiz won't be due, I think, until Tuesday night at the earliest, and I might make it a little bit later just because I'm tired and these lectures take a really long time to do. So be well, take care. I'll see you on the other side. I'm on Discord, you know where I live. Peace out, and continue being excellent to each other.